Handloaders, bullet casters, welcome back to my bench. Welcome back to our discussion of the Lee Factory Crimp Die. And where does this die fit for us as cast bullet shooters? What we're doing now is we're going to try to find out if there is a problem with swaging down bullets with the notorious sizing ring that we've all heard about through some of these cast bullet forums and hand loading communities. It works great for jacketed, but the question then comes in, is this a problem for cast? Is it sizing down our bullet? So let us take a moment to consider what we see here in this chart that we put together. I have documented the size of the bullets whenever they were seated into the case. That is, the bullet was sized through a 452 sizer. Then we checked the diameter with a caliper with a vernier scale to definitely find out, exactly the size to the the 10th of 1,000th of a degree. That might be a little bit overkill. And I've got to give you full disclosure here that there was a problem in some of my measurements. So I ultimately replaced the bullets to make sure we could start with, a fresh set of bullets. So if any of y'all have watched the last video where you see the measurements, there's actually only one here that's changed. That's the star line. The star line was in the last video an original measurement of 0.522. The bullet that just happens to be in that case now is a 0.4520. Too many numbers floating around in my head, folks. Now with the good old-fashioned kinetic hammer here, we're going to take down that case. We're going to start with Federal. No particular reason at all other than just going in alphabetical order, whether that makes a difference or not. We'll pull this one out, and I'm going to show you the measurement with my Starrett 1-inch micrometer mounted in the soft jaws of my vise. But here is that bullet, folks. So here is that bullet, folks, chalked up here in some soft jaws in this 1-inch Starrett micrometer. And if we look right here, if you're familiar with how these read, this is the third digit, the 2. Now, in order for this to be a 452, this digit, this 2, should be below this line. And unfortunately, it is not, which means that we are in a 0.451 range. So folks, me trying to support the camera here is a bit complicated. However, if you look at the 5 that's on the left set of numbers, and you follow that down all the way to that tick mark that it is perfectly lined up to, that indicates that 5 is our actual 4th digit by how well it is lined up. So folks, the numbers don't lie. We had a 0.4515 on that bullet, and we're going to go ahead and document that, which is 4515. So folks, understand that there is a fairly significant difference, and note that that was through a federal case. And once again, why does that matter? Well, some cases are thicker than others. It depends on how the company manufactures the cases. Some companies will use thicker cases, some thinner cases. It's really probably just a money thing and a bean counter thing. And we're going to see throughout these measurements that some are thicker than others, some are thinner than others. I'm not going to have you watch me pull every single round, but I will show you the results right after I pull and measure the final floor, and I'm going to explain to you what we found, what we got. So folks, here we are back with the results. This factory crimp die did some interesting things to some of our brass and really didn't do a whole lot to some of our brass. Some of these results might be pretty interesting to you. You might feel they're expected or unexpected, but let's go ahead and go through them together. I'm really not terribly surprised at all about this federal case. Now, our size out was a 0.4515, and that resulted in 8/10/1000ths of an inch drop in our bullet diameter. Now, truthfully, this is probably well enough to just round up and call 1 full thousandth of an inch. Most likely, if you were to put your regular standard dial caliper on it or your digital caliper on it, it would probably read it as a complete 1/1000th of an inch. So yes, this case was very thick, and because of that, we resulted in a swage down bullet. Now this Remington case, our size out diameter is no different than our size in diameter. We've got a 0 change here, and I'm not too surprised by this one. In my experience, Remington cases are very thin. They're just not really intended to be loaded multiple times. And I've always heard folks say that Remington kind of looks at their cases as disposable, and they don't really intend for hand loaders to get a hold of them. But don't let that discourage you from using them. They work great. You're just probably not going to get near as many loadings as you would with this federal or some of the other loadings out of it. Cellular and Bellet. We had some change here. This is a 2/10/1000ths of an inch difference. So we did lose some diameter. It's not very much at all. And it's also very possible that your dial or digital caliper might not really show the change. But the change is there. The vernier scale on the Starrett micrometer picked it up, and we do have a somewhat swaged down bullet. However, it is still a 0.4520, so we're kind of splitting hairs here, folks. This Starline case, we also had a 0 change. We started with a 0.4520 bullet. We ended with a 0.4520 bullet. Now, do not assume that because this result is the exact same as the Remington, that Starline cases are paper thin like Remington. They are not. They are thin enough that I have not had any trouble, so to speak, with running them through a factory crimp die and having a swaged down bullet. It just happens that Remington cases are quite a bit thinner than Starline. Starline is plenty thick. It's good brass. Use it, and use it. You will like it. Winchester also gave us a little bit of a change. Now, interestingly, with Winchester, I have seen so many variations in the thickness of their brass. And I can only figure that they're probably using multiple different sources. Maybe not, all the time at the same time, but maybe certain years go by, they use some brass from one maker and then brass from another maker. I don't know, but I've not seen a whole lot of consistency in Winchester brass. There's nothing wrong with it, but however, this one was a little bit on the thicker side than, say, a Starline. Because it did swage our bullet down. It was pretty similar to this Cellular and Bellet case, but it did swage it down some. If that is enough for you, a 2/10/1000ths difference in diameter of shrinkage, if that is a problem for you, then it is something that you want to take into consideration when you use this die, if you're going to use this die. However, crimp dies are not the only place that this swaging down of bullet diameter can happen. I did shoot a video showing how this can also happen with our sizing dies. So I'm going to put a card up. So for some of you folks who are interested, go ahead and take a look. The video is under brass sizing or case sizing. So take a look at that, because between that and this, we can end up with some sized down bullets. What I will not do in this video is condemn the factory crimp die, and the reason why, if you look at the first video that I did of this 4-part series, I showed what the video is designed for, and it did exactly that. The die is simply to help ensure that whatever rounds you put on your press will ultimately come out in such a way that they should be able to chamber in any firearm of the caliber that you have loaded for. Will it help to make ammunition that functions? Yes. Will it size down bullets? Yes. So we have to decide if this die is right for us. And there is one particular use that I have for this die, and I'm going to go ahead and show you. Now what I have right here for you is an ammo can full of ammo that I made several years ago in 45 ACP. Well, which gun did you make it for, Leadsmith? I have no earthly idea. It could be that it's 10 years from now before I crack this open. 20 years, I don't know, and I have no idea what 45 ACP chambered firearm I'll have. So I went ahead and ran every single round through the factory crimp die. I used the most generic bullet profile that I could to make a standard ball, and I also made it a point to use Starline brass, which is quite friendly with the factory crimp die in my cases and my needs. So we never know if there's going to be a firearm that we acquire one day and we want ammunition that we know will cycle through it. That is what this is for. However, when I do hand load, folks, I am typically hand loading for a firearm that I have in my possession. So I will use the dies that I believe accommodate those firearms best. For example, this RCBS Cowboy die has an excellent crimp feature on the seating die. I use it quite often. Also, sometimes you're just in need of a basic crimp die. No moving parts other than the lock ring. This one happens to be a Redding. Other folks will also make similar dies. Very simple to use, dedicated, it does one job. But for those of you who are using the factory crimp die and maybe you're trying to reevaluate its use and what it can do for you, you may have decided to remove the carbide sizing ring. And if you have, then by all means, you now have a dedicated crimp die, but you may have a little problem with the legend there that likes to bite on the case mouth if you're not 100% lined up. In that case, maybe just take yourself a little Dremel and try to put a little chamfer on that ledge. So folks, I really hope this video has been informative to you and has helped you to determine what place this factory crimp die has on your bench, because it probably has a place, but you might have found that there are some situations where this could be the last die you want to use if bullet fit is important to you. So folks, thank you for watching. Keep watching. Like, subscribe, and I will see you again soon.